The year was 1992. Gamers around the world flocked to arcade houses curious about the new fighting game from Midway. The arcade box has a design of a Van Damme looking character with a hand-drawn dragon artwork on the background. The controls? Well, they featured a more complex system than your usual 2D fighter, which generally only had 2 punch modes, 2 kicks, and a block button. The gameplay featured the most gruesome and violent finishes at that time, with video gamers extremely excited and parents dramatically concerned. Some US senators even wanted to take this game down, but instead it created something that shaped the gaming industry that we know today. It also immortalized this famous line.
Get over here! No!
Yes, this is none other than Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat was the brainchild of the original Mortal Kombat series creators Ed Boon and John Tobias while they worked on a 90s super hit gaming company Midway Games. The game originally intended to be a homage to Jean-Claude Van Damme, hence the creation of Mortal Kombat's very first character, Johnny Cage. Johnny resembles the young Van Damme, particularly based on his character from the 1988 movie Bloodsport. His overall look pretty much copied Frank Duke's. From the really short shorts to his split moves, Johnny Cage is indeed Van Damme. Of course, he isn't the only character in the game. They needed more than one, so Ed and John, along with their crew, started researching. How? By watching more 80s films, of course. John Tobias was a huge Kung Fu movies fan, specifically on the works of the renowned Hong Kong action film director Tsui Hark and the legendary Bruce Lee. The set of the game was even heavily inspired from Bruce Lee's first Hollywood film, Enter the Dragon, and other martial arts films. For Lord Raiden, his overall look and powers were heavily influenced by that mystical thunder character from the cult classic John Carpenter flick Big Trouble in Little China. The character wears a similar straw hat and has actual lightning powers. I mean, that's obviously Raiden the lightning god right there. Scorpion and Sub-Zero wise, this was undisclosed, but we're pretty sure they're based on 80s ninja movies such as the American Ninja series and other unknown Japanese films. Sonya Blade is very clearly based on the female action star Cynthia Rothrock. She's a famous actress and martial artist during the 80s and already works with prominent Hong Kong action stars such as Sammo Hung and Yuen Biao. Her moves, looks and outfit are just uncanny. Plus, she can really kick ass. Kano. His looks are kind of similar to T-800 from the Terminator. He was also supposed to be of American-Japanese descent, but thanks to the late Trevor Goddard from the hit 1995 film Mortal Kombat, Kano was transformed into a more notorious and very Australian criminal. And from there, he became an icon of the series. His fatality was also influenced by the film Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where the villain Mola Ram rips out the heart of one of his followers for a sacrificial rite. It's disturbing to say the least, but at least we had a preview of what it would look like on screen. There were lots of changes and debates for Liu Kang as a character, but the end product was to just simply make him the Bruce Lee of the franchise, making him the first Bruce Lee-inspired character in a modern-age AAA fighting game. Sorry Fei Long, he did come first. The development of Mortal Kombat in Midway Games started in 1991, and the whole team only consisted of 4 people. Ed Boon is the programmer, John Tobias on art and story, John Vogel on primary graphics, and Dan Forden on sound design. But hang on, let's actually begin before they landed on this project, shall we? Midway Games were actually approached to make a game based on the 1992 film Universal Soldier, starring, you guessed it, Jean-Claude Van Damme. It never came to fruition, and the project was handed over to Accolade. But that moment gave John Tobias an enlightenment that would soon make history and become one of the most popular franchises of all time. John Tobias imagined Van Damme in a video game and wanted to break the tradition of making cartoonish sprite graphics in a fighting game with the likes of Street Fighter II and SNK games. He planned for a darker approach, similar to Enter the Dragon and Bloodsport, and using digitized sprites of real people as the primary graphic design for the characters, similar to the infamous arcade game Pit Fighter. The game was supposed to be a Bloodsport project, but for some reason the license never went through, so they had to go back to square one. With Van Damme still in mind, Tobias designed his first character for a fighting game, hence Johnny Cage was born. Of course, a fighting game can't have only one character, so they went on to create 6 more playable fighters, and so production began. They hired actors Daniel Pesina, Richard DeVizio, Hope Sung Pak, and others. They started on character design and principal photography, but there was a little problem with the production. Originally, Liu Kang was supposed to be a Shaolin monk. Yes, a full-on bald-head Shaolin monk. Ho Sung-pak wasn't a bit of a fan of the idea since he needed to shave his head completely. He respectfully refused, and the design team had no other option but to overhaul Liu Kang, and they came up with the Bruce Lee-esque combatant. Now the cast was complete, they encountered another problem: the game's title. Ed Boon and his team came up with a bunch of names that didn't really pack a punch. They only had generic names such as Kumite, Dragon Attack, Death Blow, and even their famous finisher Fatality. But all of these titles pretty much sucked, and this created even a bigger problem in Midway. One day, Ed Boon's friend and pinball designer Steve Ritchie visited the Midway Games office. While walking around, he noticed the team's drawing board and accidentally made fun of the word Kombat. He intentionally misspelled the C with a K, and the development team took notice. Adding the word Mortal before the new word Kombat certainly made an impression to everyone at Midway, and from there, Mortal Kombat was born, and it was money time for Ed Boon and John Tobias. Not all games are perfect though. First versions of the arcade machine had a bug, specifically on Johnny Cage's head decapitation fatality, where his uppercuts would beat an enemy 3 times and the body would pop out more than one head. I think that's even more morbid than the actual fatality, to be honest. Home console version was stricter than the arcades. The Sega Genesis version by default didn't have blood and full fatalities. It actually needed a code to open up the full Bloodbath version. The Super Nintendo version is Blood 3 since Nintendo didn't want to go beyond their family-friendly policy. However, the Sega Mega Drive version featured a full-blown violent Mortal Kombat, as with their Big Brother arcade version. See? This is why Japan has all the nice things. Mortal Kombat is considered to be the most violent video game created during the 90s, and it sparked outrage and concern from parents and, of course, the United States Senate. Along with Night Trap and Lethal Enforcer, Senator Joe Lieberman held a Senate meeting concerning violence on video games, describing Mortal Kombat and other games on the line as disgusting, appalling, and they should not be sold to minors. Hence, the ESRB rating was created, and it shaped the gaming industry into the next level. We should be thanking Mortal Kombat in a way. Without it, we probably wouldn't have Grand Theft Auto or Resident Evil. Thank you, Ed Boon and John Tobias. Mortal Kombat features a simple yet complex 2D fighting system. Instead of just holding the back button to block, it has a separate button similar to punch and kicks. There are no medium attacks in the game like Street Fighter. Instead, they only have high punch, high kick, and low kick. As for the character's moveset, Mortal Kombat kept it as traditional as possible. Like Sub-Zero's Ice Freeze move, for example. It's similar to Ryu's famous Hadouken move, down forward punch. Midway Games used this to keep Mortal Kombat accessible to new players. And lastly, Mortal Kombat practically started their unique fatality moves. It's a move to finish off your downed enemy and do some brutally gruesome things to them. And yes, this is the very thing that got them into trouble in the first place. Up to this day, Sub-Zero's head rip fatality is still considered the most violent finisher of them all. After the success of Mortal Kombat 1, Midway and Acclaim developed 2 more sequels with new storyline and characters and an adventure game that still used digitized photorealistic sprites. Mortal Kombat was so successful, some characters even guest starred in some games, though it is kind of weird seeing Raiden shooting hoops in NBA Jam. They ditched this process on Mortal Kombat 4 and decided to use full 3D polygon graphics. It didn't sell well to loyal fans and it kind of bombed, don't even get me started with this garbage. It took until the PlayStation 2 console until the Mortal Kombat franchise was acquired by NetherRealms and Warner Bros. NetherRealm Studios rebooted MK in 2011, where they went back to basics and developed the Immortal franchise flawlessly, fixing all of Midway's mess from before. They even added guest characters such as Kratos from God of War and Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street. It was a huge hit for old school and new players, though they never made new arcade machines, which does kinda suck. After the success of the 2011 reboot up to the latest Mortal Kombat 11, NetherRealm Studios are rumoured to be developing the 12th of the series. Mortal Kombat also spanned 2 decent films and 1 abomination, several animated shows, and a massive pile of merchandise, turning this game into a goldmine. Like I said, Mortal Kombat is immortal. Mortal Kombat certainly had its up and downs, controversies, and an immortalised genre. Without this amazing franchise, the video game industry we know today would be completely different and probably very boring. So remember kids, always ask for an ESRB rating before buying a game. Yeah, right.